Here's a truth that'll hit you like a freight train. Research from the Harvard study of adult development, which followed men for over 80 years, shows that 73% of men in their 70s report that their biggest regrets come from things they learned too late in their 50s. Rather, if you're a man approaching 50 or already past it, you're standing at a critical threshold. The men who've already crossed into their 60s and 70s are looking back at you, trying to warn you about the harsh truths they learned after it was too late to do anything about them. What happened? How did we go from men who entered their 50s with confidence and clarity about life to men who reached their 60s filled with regret about what they didn't understand until time ran out? I know you felt this. That sense that there are things about life, relationships, time, and purpose that you still haven't figured out. That you're operating on assumptions that might be wrong. That maybe you're missing something critical that the men 10 or 20 years ahead of you already know. Fellas, what I'm about to share with you are the 7 harsh truths that men consistently report learning in their 50s, but wishing desperately they'd understood in their 30s or 40s. These aren't theories. These are documented patterns from men who've reached the age where they can see their entire lives with clarity and identify exactly where they went wrong. Pay attention, because every year you spend not knowing these truths is a year you can't get back. Let's be clear about what we're dealing with. Society tells you that 50 is still young, that you've got plenty of time. That life experience will naturally teach you what you need to know when you need to know it. But here's the reality from men who've already walked this path. The most important truths about life become obvious only after the window to apply them has mostly closed. Research from Stanford University shows that self-awareness and life wisdom peak in the late 50s and early 60s, precisely when the opportunity to apply that wisdom to build a different life has dramatically decreased. You finally understand what matters when you have maybe 10 or 15 good years left to act on it. And here's what nobody wants to admit. Men reach their 50s operating on beliefs and assumptions they formed in their 20s, and most of those beliefs are catastrophically wrong. You've been making decisions based on what you thought was true, and it's only in your 50s that you realize you've built a life on faulty premises. The men who thrive in their final decades aren't necessarily smarter or more talented. They're the ones who learned these 7 harsh truths early enough to course correct. The ones who didn't wait for life to teach them through painful experience. The ones who listened to the warnings from men who'd already paid the price for learning late. Harsh truth. Number 1. Time accelerates dramatically, and you have far less of it than you think. This is the one that hits every man like a punch in the gut around 50. Suddenly, years aren't passing, they're evaporating. Your kids are grown, your parents are elderly or gone, friends are dying, and you're looking at the calendar thinking, where the hell did the last 20 years go? Research from Duke University on time perception shows that subjective time speeds up dramatically after age 40, with each decade feeling proportionally shorter than the last. Your 50s will feel shorter than your 20s felt. Your 60s will feel shorter than your 30s. Not because they are shorter, because your brain processes time differently as you age. Here's the brutal math. If you're 50 years old and live to 75, you have roughly 9,000 days left. That sounds like a lot until you realize that's only 300 months. Only 75 seasons. Only 25 more times watching summer turn to fall. The harsh truth that men learn too late. You don't have time to waste anymore. Every day spent on things that don't matter is theft from a rapidly shrinking account. Every year in a job you hate. Every month in a relationship that drains you. Every week living someone else's agenda. These aren't just unpleasant. They're irreplaceable portions of your limited remaining time. Men in their 60s universally report this regret. I thought I had so much more time. I kept putting things off. And then suddenly I was 65. And half the things I planned to do someday will now never happen. Don't be that man. Understand now, not at 60. That time is your only non-renewable resource. Act accordingly. Harsh truth number 2. Health declines faster than you expect, and neglecting it in your 40s destroys your 60s. This one catches men completely off guard. You coast through your 30s and 40s feeling relatively invincible. Sure, you've gained weight. Your back hurts sometimes. You don't recover from workouts like you used to, but you're basically fine, right? Then you hit your early 50s, and everything falls apart simultaneously. The blood pressure that was a little high becomes medication dependent. The extra 30 pounds becomes pre-diabetes. The occasional joint pain becomes chronic arthritis. The good cholesterol tanks. The testosterone crashes. Research from the Mayo Clinic shows that men who neglect health maintenance in their 40s experience a 67% higher rate of serious health issues in their 50s and 60s than men who prioritized health early. Why? Because the damage accumulates silently, then presents all at once. Here's what men learn too late. Your 50s are when you pay the bill for how you treated your body in your 30s and 40s. Every workout you skipped, every meal of garbage you ate, every annual physical you postponed, every symptom you ignored. They don't just disappear, they compound with interest. The harsh truth. If you're in your late 40s or early 50s and you haven't made health your top priority, you're running out of runway. Start now, not Monday, not next month, today, because men in their 60s with serious health issues all say the same thing. I wish I'd taken it seriously sooner. I thought I had more time. Your remaining quality years depend entirely on decisions you make right now about diet, exercise, sleep, stress, and preventive care. This isn't vanity, it's survival. Harsh truth number 3. Most of the people you're trying to please don't actually care about you. This revelation destroys men when they finally see it clearly in their 50s. You've spent decades, maybe your entire adult life, trying to please people. Your parents, your extended family, your colleagues, your neighbors. People whose approval you've been chasing for 30 years. And then you realize, most of them wouldn't show up if you actually needed help. They're happy to take your time, your energy, your resources when it's convenient. But in a real crisis? Crickets. Research from the University of Michigan shows that the average person maintains approximately 150 social relationships, but only 4 to 7 of those relationships provide meaningful support during life challenges. Everyone else? Their acquaintances, social connections, or people you're performing for, who contribute nothing substantial to your life. Here's what men over 50 learn. You wasted enormous amounts of your limited life trying to please people who don't matter. Going to events you hated, maintaining relationships that drained you, saying yes to obligations out of guilt or social pressure, caring what people thought about your choices. The brutal awakening. Those people weren't worth it. Their opinions don't matter. Their approval doesn't improve your life. And the years you spent performing for them are years you'll never get back. Men in their 60s report this consistently. I wish I'd stopped caring what people thought 20 years earlier. I wasted so much time and energy on people who ultimately didn't matter at all. Identify the 4 to 7 people who actually matter in your life. Focus your energy there. Everyone else gets polite distance. Your remaining time is too valuable to waste on people who wouldn't drive 20 minutes to help you move. Harsh truth number 4. The career you've built might have been someone else's dream, not yours. This one hits men devastatingly hard in their 50s. You're 25 or 30 years into a career. You've climbed the ladder. You've achieved what you thought you wanted. You've got the title, the salary, the reputation. And you suddenly realize this was never actually your dream. This was what your parents wanted, what society valued, what seemed safe or prestigious or practical, but it wasn't what you actually wanted to do with your one life. Research from the Gallup World Poll shows that 63% of workers over 50 report feeling unfulfilled by their careers, but only 8% make significant career changes because they feel it's too late. They're trapped in careers they don't care about, counting down to retirement from work that never mattered to them. Here's the harsh truth men discover. You spent the best years of your life building someone else's vision instead of your own. The business you never started, the art you never created, the contribution you never made, the passion you never pursued. You sacrificed all of it for a stable career that ultimately left you empty. The men who reach 65 with profound regret aren't the ones who failed at their dreams. They're the ones who never tried because they were too busy succeeding at careers that didn't fulfill them. If you're in your late 40s or early 50s and you're not doing work that matters to you, here's the wake-up call. You have maybe 10 or 15 working years left. You're going to spend them on someone else's agenda. Or are you finally going to pursue what actually calls to you? Men in their 60s say it consistently. I should have taken the risk. I should have pursued what mattered to me. The security I was protecting wasn't worth the dreams I sacrificed. Harsh truth number 5. Women change dramatically after menopause, and most marriages don't survive it intact. This is the one that blindsides married men in their 50s. Your wife goes through menopause, a biological transformation as significant as puberty, and suddenly she's a different person. Different libido, different mood, different priorities, different wants. And the relationship you built? It often doesn't survive this transformation. Research from the Institute for Divorce Financial Analysts shows that divorce rates spike significantly for couples in their 50s and 60s, with 62% of these divorces initiated by women post-menopause. Why? Because menopause often triggers a complete reassessment of life, and many women decide they don't want to spend their remaining years in marriages that no longer fulfill them. Here's what men learn too late. The woman you married at 30 might be completely different at 55. Her hormones changed. Her priorities shifted. Her tolerance for unfulfilling relationships evaporated. And you're suddenly facing divorce in your mid-50s when you thought you'd made it through the danger zone. The harsh reality. If your marriage was based on convenience, habit, or staying for the kids, menopause often exposes that foundation as insufficient. She's no longer willing to tolerate mediocre. She's no longer interested in maintaining appearances. She wants either genuine connection or she wants out. Men in their 60s who survived this transition say the same thing. I wish I'd invested in the marriage earlier. I took her for granted. I assumed we'd always be together. Then everything changed, and I had no equity built up to weather the storm. If you're married and approaching or in your 50s, this is your warning. Invest in the relationship now or prepare for it to end. Menopause doesn't cause divorce. It reveals which marriages were strong enough to survive transformation and which were held together by momentum. Harsh truth number 6. Your children don't owe you anything, and expecting otherwise creates bitterness. This truth devastates fathers in their late 50s and early 60s. You spent decades providing, sacrificing, working overtime to give your kids opportunities, making their lives the center of yours. Assuming that investment would create loyalty and closeness, then your kids grow up and they have their own lives, own priorities, own families, own problems. They're not calling regularly. They're not visiting often. They don't seem to appreciate the sacrifices you made. Research from Pew Research Center shows that 47% of parents over 50 report feeling disappointed by the level of contact and involvement they have with adult children. They expected gratitude, engagement, meaningful relationships. They got occasional phone calls and obligatory holiday visits. Here's the harsh truth. Your children don't owe you a close relationship because you provided for them. That was your choice, your responsibility, not a transaction that obligated them to remain closely connected to you forever. The men who learn this too late become bitter. They resent their kids for not calling enough, visiting enough, appreciating enough. They poison the relationships that do exist by constantly expressing disappointment about what isn't there. The men who understand this truth early, they build relationships with adult children based on mutual respect and genuine connection, not obligation and expectation. They accept that adult children have their own lives. They appreciate whatever relationship exists without demanding more. Men in their 70s with good relationships with their kids say, I let go of expectations. I stopped keeping score of calls and visits. I focused on being someone my kids wanted to be around, not someone who made them feel guilty for having their own lives. If you want relationships with your adult children, stop expecting and start accepting. They don't owe you anything. Build relationships based on genuine connection, not parental obligation. Harsh truth number 7. Purpose doesn't arrive automatically. You have to actively create it or die empty. Final harsh truth that men learn too late. Retirement without purpose is a fast track to deterioration and early death. Society sells you the dream. Work for 40 years, retire, and enjoy your golden years relaxing. But research from Harvard Medical School shows that men who retire without a clear sense of purpose have a 67% higher mortality rate in the first 5 years of retirement than men who retire with active pursuits, meaningful engagement. Here's what happens. You work your whole life. You retire at 65. Suddenly you have nothing but time and no purpose to structure it, so you watch TV, play golf, travel a bit, and within 2 years, you're depressed, declining cognitively, losing physical capability, and wondering why retirement feels like dying slowly instead of living fully. The harsh truth. You need purpose more than you need rest. You need mission more than you need leisure. You need contribution more than you need comfort. And if you wait until retirement to figure out what gives your life meaning, you've waited too late. Men who thrive in their final decades aren't the ones who retired to do nothing. They're the ones who retired from one thing to pursue another. They mentor, they build, they create, they contribute. They have reasons to wake up that matter more than sleeping in. Men in their 70s who are declining rapidly all report the same thing. I thought I just wanted to relax. Turns out having nothing meaningful to do is worse than working. I should have figured out my purpose before I gave up my career. If you're approaching retirement, here's your wake-up call. Start building your next purpose now. Not after you retire, now. Because transitioning from work to nothing creates a void that kills more men than most diseases. Here's what you need to internalize from these lessons. Lesson 1. Understand that learning these truths later in life doesn't excuse you from acting on them now. The men who shared these regrets can't go back. You can. You still have time, but only if you stop waiting and start implementing. Lesson 2. Learn from men who are 10 to 20 years ahead of you. Their regrets are your roadmap. Their mistakes are your warnings. Their wisdom is your shortcut. Don't make them repeat themselves by making the same errors they're telling you to avoid. Lesson 3. Apply this knowledge before life forces you to learn it through pain. You can learn these truths now and adjust your trajectory, or you can ignore them and learn them the hard way in 10 years when your options are far more limited. Lesson 4. Teach younger men what you're learning right now. Your sons, your nephews, the guys in their 30s who think they have unlimited time. Give them the benefit of these truths before they waste decades learning them slowly. Lesson 5. Use this information to make different choices than the men who learned too late. They sacrificed health, you prioritize it. They wasted time pleasing others, you focus on what matters. They deferred dreams, you pursue them now. Lesson 6. Never forget these truths when the daily grind tries to make you complacent. When you're tempted to skip the gym, remember truth 2. When you're about to waste energy on people who don't matter, remember truth 3. When you want to defer your dreams another year, remember truth 4. Share this with a brother who's approaching 50 or already past it. Not because he'll thank you immediately. Most men resist harsh truths until they've experienced them personally, but because 3 years from now, or 5 years, or 10 years, when he's faced with the consequences of ignoring these warnings, he'll remember that you tried to tell him. That's what brothers do. We don't just celebrate the good times. We warn each other about the traps. We share the hard truths that society won't tell. We pass on the wisdom from men who learned too late, so younger men can learn early enough to act. These 7 harsh truths have destroyed countless men who learned them after their window to respond had closed. Men who realize too late that time accelerates, that health matters more than career, that most relationships don't justify the energy invested. But you're not most men. You're the man who's reading this, right now, while you still have time to course correct, while you can still make different choices, while you can still build the final chapter differently than the men who learned these truths through painful regret. That's the difference between you and them. They learned too late. You're learning in time. Now prove you learned it by actually changing your behavior. Pass this forward. That brother in your life who needs to hear it. He won't thank you today, but someday, when he's avoided the regrets these truths prevent, he'll realize you gave him one of the most valuable gifts possible, wisdom before it was too late to use it.